And welcome to... Whoops. Bloody hell. Welcome to this week's edition of the Weekend Wrap. How you going? I'm here tonight with Nikki. How you going, Nick?
Oh, not too bad. That was fun to sit through, wasn't it?
Yeah, no. Not really. It was like pulling teeth, really. But never mind.
As a bonus, though, it wasn't the Port Richmond game.
Oh, look. I don't even want to talk about them. But, you know what? Apart from about 10 minutes, today's game was the only game I watched this weekend.
Oh, not too bad.
Yeah, I had...
They haven't been good ones.
No, well, I was surprised by a couple of the results, and obviously we'll get to those in a second, but I wanted a little break from the footy this weekend, so I thought, no, I'm just going to sit here and be a dad and leave the footy alone for a little while. Now, did you play today?
Yes, I unfortunately got stuck down in the back lines to give some people a rest and things.
And how did that end up? Give us the drill.
Oh, well, we played Port Adelaide, and yeah, we beat them, so yay.
Beautiful. I just wanted to hear you say that so that we could put it down for posterity. Prosperity, whatever that word is that I always get wrong. Beautiful. Well, look, without further ado, let's get on with the show. Obviously, there's a few results to work through, and then we'll talk about our game and try and pick that mess apart. So Thursday night was apparently a game on. How many people you reckon watched it? 5?
I was one of them. Oh God.
How could you do that to yourself?
I'm a footy tragic. I've said this before. I'm a footy tragic.
Yeah, well, that is very tragic. The Eagles got up by 78, predictably. Friday night was another forgettable affair. The Tigers really, they're bloody woeful, aren't they? Couldn't get up, and the Power ended up winning by 38 points. And then yesterday we had a good win by the Suns. I'd actually tipped that. I reckon they're going to be hard to beat up there for the remainder of the season.
Yeah.
As they get players back, they ended up getting up by 40 over the Saints. Whoops. And then we've got probably the match of the round, you'd imagine. The Bulldogs getting up. Apparently last gasp, wasn't it, by 4 points over the Swannies at the SCG, so that's a very good win by the Western Bulldogs and keeps their season well and truly on track. And then,
that was just...
Did you watch that one?
Sydney? Yeah, up until... I heard the last bit on the radio because we had this is what's hilarious about us playing today. Most people played with quite severe hangovers because we had our mid-year ball last night. And so I was listening to that on the way.
Right.
The end of it, but I'd watched it up until I had to leave. And Sydney just really needed to get it forward. But they do rely on too few to do too much. Yeah,
they Hanbury and Parker and whatnot. I'd imagine. I mean, I didn't watch the game, but those two usually pick the Swans up and put them on their shoulders.
Yeah, definitely. But and I think their midfielders are going to have severe talking to for not running down and protecting that area in the last kick of the game.
Yeah, right. So what actually happened? As I said, I didn't watch it.
Oh, there was a contest out on the wing. Bulldogs ran hard, quite well, towards their forward line. And I'm trying to remember which of the Swans player it was, but he noticed it, and he's pointing at him. And he pointed at Johannesson, and he's yelling. And I was listening to some radio, and the radio was picking up. He's telling his other midfielders they need to get down and man up on him. Nah, kicked it straight to Johannesson. Kicked the goal that won them the game.
There you go. He's not the type of player you want to
Got
let
to take your chance.
That's right.
No, he's quite good.
And, 'Carlton versus Collingwood, 57-45. Well, that'd have to be an all-time low-scoring record between those two clubs. 8-9 to 6-9. Bloody hell.
Well, I did ask about this one because it was playing on in the background. So I just kept looking at the score going, what the hell? Dad actually said it wasn't too bad a game to watch because it was two sides that were at about their same level. So they were just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and they couldn't kick goals. But it actually wasn't too bad to watch because they were both at the same level.
Yeah,
so that was acceptable. And I think it was slightly better level than Richmond Port.
Yeah. And, of course, today we had the Crows getting up by 22 points over a gallant and hard-working Melbourne. 18 goals, 12-1-20 to 15 goals, 8-98. Probably not the way most of us were hoping the match would go. But a win's a win's a win, Nikki.
It is a win, but interestingly, even though I was getting frustrated watching it, I didn't feel that worried.
I was only worried at once. I was worried how we were going to come out in the second half.
The third?
Yeah. I thought that was the fact that we came out switched on was a bit of a relief. But aside from that, we always seem to be around the mark. And we'll go into that in a little bit of depth. Just after I go through the ladder, as a consequence, we're now all on 14 games. So we have the Hawks on 44 points and probably the lowest percentage ever by a top team, 119. Then we have on 40 points, we have the Cats in second, the Giants in third, the Swans in fourth, the Crows in fifth, the Bulldogs in sixth, and the Kangaroos in seventh, with percentages ranging from 139 for the Cats to 116 for the Kangas. And then rounding out the top eight, one game behind, we have West Coast on a pretty healthy percentage, actually 134. Out of the eight, Port, 2 games out, and the rest of them probably done their season now. Melbourne, Collingwood, Richmond, St Kilda, Carlton, Gold Coast, Freo, Brisbane, and the hapless Bombers. So you'd imagine, apart from Port having a little sniff, if a team such as North Melbourne falters, you'd imagine the eight's pretty right now, Nick, don't you reckon?
I think it has been right for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Even though there were some sides outside that were playing okay footy and you thought if somebody dropped off. But I think we've pretty much known from about after that first 8 rounds, everybody's kind of saying, yeah, it's kind of set.
Yeah, it seemed to be that right. way. Seemed to be that way from a long time out.
Are they 2 or 3 games away?
2 games. 2 games out. So they're sitting on 7 wins, West Coast on 9. North Melbourne are probably the only shaky ones, really. West Coast haven't got a bad run in, so the Kangas would be the ones that you'd be looking to put together a couple of performances just to shore up their spot up there.
And the thing is, Port's got a horrible run. I mean, they do play Hawthorn well, and they've got them next Thursday night here, and Hawthorn normally doesn't like travelling, and they're not playing well. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they did beat Hawthorn and everybody go, oh my God, Port are, you know, outside the 8. But then they've got like GWS and they've got North Melbourne on Etihad.
Yep.
So
that's not an easy task.
No, I don't think they've got an easy task to make up for it.
So I guess it just remains to be seen who's going to fill out the top 4. I mean, it's anyone's guess at the moment. Really, percentage is obviously going to play a big part, and we're not looking too badly there, middle of the road, and with a couple of, you'd hope, percentage boosting games ahead of us, which most of these other teams have already had. So, it's we're certainly in the hunt for a top 4 spot, don't you reckon?
Well, our average scoring is 112, is what our average score has been this year. But for the past couple of weeks, we've been getting over that quite easily. And even today, we were, was it 120, 122?
Yeah.
I think it was. So that's looking quite positive for us. It's going to be down. We've got to keep on top of our game. Have you listened to Pike's post-match presser?
No, I've I went straight into dad mode after the footy because it's been a bit tight this week with a late finish. So no, I haven't listened to the pressers yet. What did he have to say?
Well, it was only 4 minutes because obviously he had to get on the bus, etc. He did describe it, and somebody did pick it up in the good, bad, and the ugly thread. That Pikey described the game as an example of the good, the bad, and the ugly for us. It's like, you've been reading footy, Pikey.
Yeah.
But he kind of said about that second quarter that the players were aware of what was going on. And he said that, yeah, as coaches, we had some good communication down with the players, but sometimes you just need that break, that little bit of a break just to fix things.
Reset.
And it was quite interesting that he said that the players had figured out that this was what was going on. And they were asking questions of, do we change our structures or do we do something else? So I quite like the fact that there's a proactive thinking that is going on. And I did actually see some correction going on the field of our players, the others. And there weren't angry corrections like you've seen other players from other teams can do where they're absolutely berate. It's just like, no, you should have done that. And you just see a little acknowledgement and, yeah, sorry, kind of thing. So I think what Pike's sort of brought is that nice learning environment.
Yeah.
And I'm quite pleased with it, even though it was still kind of like 8 goals to 3 is not acceptable. And he didn't look like it was acceptable.
Look, I think he might have gone a bit easy on them in the presser because I can tell you exactly what happened in the second quarter. We got lazy.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, that's what happened. Let's, before we get into pulling that one apart, let's go through some stats as we do. Head-to-head stats. Nothing really jumps out to me except for the fact that for the first time in a long while, and this is probably indicative of our pressure on Melbourne, we held a team to more handballs than kicks. The Dees had 205 handballs and 199 kicks. They overused the ball, really, but a lot of that, particularly in the first half or the first quarter in particular, and certainly in the second half we picked it up again, was due to our pressure. We were very much in their face. We played quite a man-on-man game when they had the ball. So they went under a 1-to-1 ratio. We went at 1.4, which is pretty standard for us. We out-tackled them. We got over 100 tackles, 101 tackles to 74. Again, indicative of the fact that Melbourne did have a lot of the ball, but we forced them into a lot of turnovers just with our pressure. Hit-outs were pretty even. I thought that was a nil-all draw, really, 46-42. Frees were pretty even.
I'd say Sauce won around the go-round.
Yeah, I don't think. The big danger with Gawn is him getting off the chain up forward, and we seem
he didn't allow him to do that.
No. Gawn certainly in the last quarter tried a couple of times to get down forward, but we were able to nullify him. But I don't think it was Sauce's best game, but I certainly thought he was. He gave us more value around the ground than Gawn did for Melbourne. He is very good. His second efforts are really good, Max Gawn. I've noticed. It's the first time I've really watched him play. But in the stoppages, his second efforts are quite good. What else have we got here? Conversion rate was better than it was last week, which wasn't too hard.
No, that wasn't too hard at all.
Yeah.
Do you have our last quarters?
No, I don't. I only have the game stats. I do know that... sorry,
I know this one.
Go on.
So I think it's for the last... Is it last 3 or last 4? Hang on, I'll just grab that up. I think it's the last 4, but we've only conceded 3 goals, 8.
Okay. I was thinking during the game that our second quarters this season have been our worst. I don't have the stats on that, but again, we seem to go in a hole in the second quarter. But certainly our last quarter closing out has been a feature, at least for the last month or so. What else have we got here?
It's what It's
Sorry,
what we've
on.
kind of mentioned a little bit last week was what I noticed being at the North Melbourne game and what I thought happened in the West Coast game, that we're breaking teams. They can't go with us for 4 quarters. We
And a lot of
play
people,
that fast game,
yeah, a lot of people
and you
putting
can
that down
see
to
the mistakes
fitness.
Well, we make them play that fast, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. That really takes it out of you, because for teams to score against us, they've got to get that fast break, which
Yep,
means everybody's got to sprint.
yep,
And that's wearing a lot of teams out.
yeah, and I think the other point that I noticed today, I was really watching it quite closely. When we get our structure in place, we don't lose our structure very often. You could argue the second quarter we did, but I put that down to work rate. But certainly,
Yeah.
I think we're a very well drilled team with some very clear messaging, and it doesn't turn into a shootout in the last quarter like a lot of these games do, as players tire and they can't maintain position and maintain structure. But we keep our shape very well, and when we get it up forward, we're very adept at locking it in there and getting return inside 50s. So I think it's a little bit of column A, fitness, but I also think it's a little bit of column B, just our discipline with team structures as well. I'm amazed that we went at 71% disposal efficiency. I reckon in the first half, or maybe the second quarter, it was down around the 50%.
Yeah, it was. It was 57 at one stage.
Yeah.
And they were only 60. They were only 60 something.
Yeah, it was a sloppy game, but our disposal efficiency and our decision making were horrendous.
There were some shockers.
Oh, Jesus. So I mean, there's nothing really that sticks out apart from the obvious, which was essentially we maintained our pressure on the Melbourne ball carrier. We closed down their space more often than not, and in the end, as you mentioned, Nikki, we just wore them down.
Or as what I think Titus O'Reilly tweeted, something that we seem to have managed to grasp this concept of total points as a winning concept.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah. Well, we knock up. When was the last time do you reckon we scored under 100 points? I can't even remember.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
And the other thing I have to say is I was just hoping that the cheer squad was going to have one thing on their banner, and they did it. Get the job done.
Yeah, I thought it was handled very well. There were no black armbands, which I was actually really pleased to see. There was no grandiose statement on banners or whatnot. It was simply an understated, almost an inside statement. Get the job done is something that means a lot to our boys, individually. And I think the club, without harping on it too much, I think the club have handled this week particularly well. And it would be interesting to know. Yeah, it would be interesting to know whether the players have found this week a little bit exhausting.
Well, Pike was asked a little bit about it, and he said that the boys were very keen on getting the win today. And what he said was he met with the leadership group at the start of the week, and the club had also spoken to Meredith, and Meredith and her family just wanted things kept low-key, so the club was very much respecting that.
Yep.
But the leadership group and Pike, from out of that meeting, and he said that the leadership group had said that the boys, each of them, they will take their own time to reflect on Phil in their own way. And what they made sure was that there was still some, if the players needed to talk to anybody or player welfare, that was still available to them. So I wonder if they actually took Emma over today.
Yeah, I don't know. She wasn't cited on any coverage. Whether she was behind the scenes, not sure. But I think, it's one of those things where, the game was always a danger game anyway. Given the additional the factor of
Your
the
feelings on the day.
anniversary of it's one of those things you just thank God we got through it and let's push on
so
now.
you wonder if some of those mistakes that were being made, which are very unlike somebody like Walker or Sauce, that it's very not like them to play like that at all, to make those mistakes, whether there was a little something there as part of that. We won't really know until we actually see how we...
And it would
next
never,
week, maybe.
Yeah, it would never be an excuse. And some of the players might not even know that they were impacted as well. It's a funny thing, grief and that sort of stuff at times, and it's emotionally draining. And we know in AFL footy that you only have to be off a couple of percent, and all of a sudden you're back to the pack. So anyway, I thought the individual stats was probably a real good indication of how our midfield struggled today. Scorpus and I on Thursday night was saying that midfield ascendancy was going to be key because we certainly had the firepower up forward with their very young defence. I felt that their defence did quite well under the circumstances. But really, we got towed up in the midfield. They worked harder for the majority of the match. We did go back to a bit of our old rebound footy to get our scores. We certainly were bouncing back off half-back more than getting clean ball through the middle. And the stats bear that out. Bradley Crouch had a decent game, slowly building Brad.
I like the game.
Yeah, certainly he's working hard. He still hasn't got the pace of the game. His awareness and his peripheral vision is still a bit out, and 17 handballs out of 26 disposals. You'd like to see that flipped around, but it was good to see him getting in and under and doing a few 1%ers. He also had 9 tackles, which was excellent. 13 contested possessions, 7 clearances. And spent a little bit more time on the ground this week, 72%. Sloaney was serviceable but quiet by his standards with 23 touches, but 13 tackles, Rory. Jesus. He's going to have sore shoulders tonight. 4 inside 50s. Only
he got poleaxed again.
Yeah, he's always getting hammered. Spent a lot of time on the ground too, over 80%, 81% on the ground this week. Jared Lyons did service. I mean, all our midfielders were nothing short of serviceable, really. Jared Lyons was in and out of the game, but did some good things. Had 23 touches, 16 kicks, 7 inside 50s. And I think that's Jared's actually his one of his strengths.
It's his forte?
Well, it's certainly an underrated part of his game. I mean, we all class him as an inside midfielder, but he gets on the end of chains too because he can read the play very, very well. And there was a couple of times, one in the last, where he kicked that goal where you could see him.
He was so excited about that.
Well, and I think part of the reason, apart from the fact that it put us a little bit clear, part of the reason was that he read that whole situation very well.
Oh,
and he was so glad to get that received because he could see the little opening and he took it. So that Jared's ability to read the game and to put himself in good positions is good. 5 tackles, as I mentioned. Unfortunately, those his disposal efficiency was down, but then so was the rest of the team.
He was actually manned up for most of the last quarter on Jones, and I thought he did a pretty decent job on him.
Yeah, look, I think so. I think he, again, serviceable. Matty Crouch, I thought, had a really good first half, particularly the first quarter. But then, unfortunately, just dropped away. 7 tackles, 21 disposals, but again, double the handball to kicks, which is not what we'd really want. Couple of inside 50s, 10 contested, 4 clearances. So a really bright start from Matt. But then, as I said, I just felt that he tailed off a little bit. Only spent 68% time on ground too. Jared Lyons, 67%. I didn't mention that before. Scotty Thompson, the other midfielder, like his inside work, his bullocking non-statistical work, thanks David Noble, was great today. 9 tackles. Just his bullying and his ability to close it down when we needed to just close it down for a little while and regroup. 5 clearances as well. But only the 18
Very
disposals.
important in the second half.
Yeah, only the 18 touches though, and obviously we need more output from Scotty. But it was just that kind of game. Best player for me, I reckon, was Laddie. 13 kicks, 12 handballs.
Alistair Lynch agreed with you.
Oh, did he? Well, shit, maybe I should change.
Yeah. Well, he gave Laddie 3, but he gave 1 to Jones and 2 to Jack Watts.
You know, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with Jones getting points. I would have given Jones 2, actually. In fact, I would have given Jones...
Yeah.
I probably would have given Jones 3 and Laddie 2. I don't know about Jack Watts. I thought Jack Watts played well, but I felt that young lad, that number 21 that they had running off or that 21-year-old they had running off the half-back line, was bloody good. They got a player there. I also thought Petraka did really well for them. But yeah, Laddie, 25 disposals, 10 marks. His intercept marking today, and his marking in general today was excellent. So he was a real strength for us down back. A couple of tackles. What else did he do there that was pretty good? Went at 80% disposal efficiency, so that's probably the reason we had a half reasonable disposal efficiency and 4 rebound 50s. So he was certainly instrumental in getting us working back off half back.
What about Tex?
Tex was all right, I thought. In and out of the game. 18 touches, 14 kicks, 4 handballs, 8 marks.
1 metres gained.
Yeah, but that's because he kicks those long bombs. Eddie, that's, 100 metres a shot.
No, he did actually do a lot of work up the ground. I thought him and Lynch were pretty good.
I thought Lynchy had a really good game,
a fairly quiet play. Yeah, they took their chances when they were there.
Yeah. I thought Cheney had a good game, particularly because a couple of our key defenders were bloody awful. Tiles, although he did well in one-on-one contests, his disposal and his decision-making and his general lack of awareness at times is really starting to become a disappointing feature of his game. And Jakey Lever... I hope you're listening. I'm sure Jakey Lever's not listening to this, but I just got to say, Jake, Game of Crows, Jake Lever to kick his first goal. He takes a mark 40 metres out, and I'm thinking, here it is, 3 points for me. And then he plays on.
Well, I think kind of what I did love that it's one part of the commentary I did actually like, because as they noted, he's normally taking intercept marks, so he's taking the intercept mark and then he's taking off if he can. So that's just natural for him to take a mark and run.
I'm not letting him off. Any defender worth his salt knows that you take a mark inside forward 50, you're not dishing it off. You're not looking to handball to Brodie Smith running past. You're going back and you're calmly slotting it through. Right.
Well, see, the thing is, he only took 1 to 2 steps, and normally, if you're umpiring, you allow that because can they hear the whistle?
I actually thought he was a little stiff, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Because you're right, he hardly moved off the line.
Oh, the umpire was shocking.
Umpiring wasn't great. A couple of,
they're throws.
What's happened to incorrect disposal?
Oh, my God.
The problem is we work our guts out. We harass and tackle and all the rest of it. We force an incorrect disposal. And because the ball drops free and we're all in the contest, the ball drops free. It should be a free, but it's not. And they take the ball forward. It's a double-edged...
Yeah.
It's a double whammy. Not only do we not get the free, but generally speaking, they maintain possession of the ball and we're out of position. So it really bugged me today. It bugs everyone, but it was really noticeable today how often they dropped the ball in the tackle.
Particularly in that third quarter. We had some absolutely amazing tackles in there. They were great ones, really pinning the arms.
Yep.
And they were just dropping it down so that the 2 other players around them would then try and grab it or whatever, or they'd drop it down and then try and shuffle it forward with their foot. Yeah. Or they'd just one-handed throw it.
Yeah.
They got called once on it.
Yeah, and that was so obvious.
Incredibly blatant.
He couldn't, look, I don't,
And one of their goals, even the commentators pointed out, they're very lucky there.
yeah. Look, 4 umpires on the field.
Should be able to see that.
Well, they've either, and someone raised a really good point on the thread. It's almost like they're all waiting for each other to make a call, and by the time they realise that no one's going to make the call, the play's moved on and the moment's passed. I think it's actually ridiculous to introduce that halfway through a season and expect the umpires to be able to coordinate themselves to make a call. It hasn't made a scrap of difference, and in actual fact, I think it's made it worse. The umpiring stocks are thin enough, and I'll just make a quick mention about something to do with the umpires later on, but I heard something interesting on SEN during the week about the umpiring department.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, it's nothing groundbreaking. It's just supporting what I've been saying for a while, that there's a problem in the umpiring fraternity. And I forget who was talking about it. It might have been Shebeki, because Harford and... actually, it could have been Terry Wallace, actually, was saying that since Wayne Campbell is gone, they've actually employed Luke Brown as the umpiring... Luke Ball as the umpiring director. And he's basically doing it part-time because he's also doing an internship at the AFL, and he's also got other commitments. It seems like it's a bit of a rudderless ship at the moment, and you've got Hayden Kennedy, who's the umpire's coach, bouncing around in the media. Well, we didn't hear from him at all when Wayne Campbell was there, so he's obviously taken that on, not doing a terribly good job. So, few issues in the umpiring fraternity, I reckon. But anyway, let's move on. So the only other bloke, or a couple of blokes I'd like to mention, I thought Kyle Hartigan was fantastic, even though he had low stats. I thought he was...
And there were a couple of frees he gave away, but I'm looking at Matt going, well, you've got to try and stop the ball. You're going to concede that those ones happen.
Yeah, and the one that got done for deliberate, Jesus. Just come on.
Yeah.
It's, wow. Anyway... I thought Mitchie McGovern did all right in patches. I thought Charlie Cameron...
There was him hitting the pack, and he's starting to clunk a couple of them. Is really important. It's just he needs to practice some of his kicking.
Yeah, he didn't think through that one around the corner too terribly well, but he made amends later on in the quarter. It makes a difference having someone up there who's willing to jump at the packs, and... because certainly Tex isn't doing it, and JJ is a bit hit and miss. So having Mitch there, I actually noticed Mitch play a little bit in the middle during the match as well.
Yeah,
he found himself in the middle a couple of times.
Well, not only do we have Cameron and Edwards going off the back of the square, sometimes we've started to use McGovern doing that as well.
Yeah.
Because he's got a bit of speed, and that's a big body that's coming through that's going to hit any of those midfielders that get in his way.
Yeah, he doesn't miss much. He's going to be a fantastic player for us as he matures. Charlie Cameron again had an almost game. His pace and agility are really exciting. He just wanted to add a bit of composure to his game, but hopefully that'll come. But I think, as I'm talking here, it just seems like just an even below average performance across the board by our group. No particular standouts, or you could argue probably Lairdy is a standout, but aside from that, nothing terribly earth-shattering. And in the end, I think it was the team effort and the ability to stick to structures that got us over the line in the end, plus probably, as you say, a bit of fitness.
Yeah, that's kind of what I felt about the game at the end. I mean, I was quite... That third quarter, even though we didn't quite capitalise on some of the scoring opportunities we had, I was quite pleased with that. And that last quarter, we just controlled it. And even when they got a bit of a run on, we were still able to stop them. It was mostly the tackling pressure or the intent at the person with the ball.
Yeah.
And it is great because even though that camera work was kind of horrible at some stages, they were pulling back a little bit. So you could actually see us setting up, and as you said, our structure of how we set up to make sure that even if they start trying to get that little run on with handball, they might get one, maybe two to work, but then they were very much being stopped dead in their tracks.
Yeah, I felt like they played into our hands at times. They needed to work harder to get better field position, and there's a few times where they just went one or two handballs too many. They've got the makings of a good side. They're probably lacking a couple of keys. Chris Dawes is bloody atrocious, and they're obviously
somebody called it an inanimate carbon rod. I was like, yeah.
And they're very young down back, and obviously they're missing Harry O.
They've got a nice mix down there.
They do. They're just a bit young. I noticed their average age was almost a year younger than ours. So but they're coming along.
And we know we've got a young one.
But they had a dip. They had a real dip.
Yeah.
And but for a lack of class. They might have found themselves on the other end of the ledger. So, look, as a general comment about the game, I think it can be summed up in 3 words: work rate, composure, and I've forgotten the third word I was going to use. But it was work rate. In the second quarter, we just dropped off.
We weren't
Our
working.
intensity dropped off. We were second to the ball. The tackles that were sticking in the first quarters, they were starting to break them. Obviously, they said it at quarter time as I think it was Goody was interviewed, saying, we got to get better at clearances in the second quarter. Well, they certainly ripped into them because that's exactly what they did. I think it was 13-4 or something in the second quarter or something ridiculous. But yeah, we struggled to go with them when they lifted their intensity in the middle. And I felt like we were playing lazy football. A lot of the disposal issues were due to laziness. We were not. We're trying to pull off kicks that were. Complacency was the other word I was looking for, Nikki. Because
you found it.
Yeah, because I felt like after the first quarter, I felt like the lads thought that they were going to do it in a canter. To be honest, and they didn't account for Melbourne lifting, and they struggled to go with them
because they got smashed.
Yeah, they struggled to go with them when Melbourne did lift.
Melbourne very much pride themselves on their contested ball. They're a very good contested ball side, and we absolutely smashed them in the first quarter. And even before that second quarter started, I thought they're going to work harder in that midfield.
Yep.
And that's what they did. And that caught us napping because we thought they were going to come out exactly the same. Because obviously we thought that what they gave us in the first half was their normal standard. But they were able
like
to lift up.
Nathan Jones and Viney
and
even Bernard, they're not going to be satisfied with what they dished up in the first quarter. So it's paying them a big disservice to think that they're going to be easy beats for the whole game, and that's how it panned out. I mean, Nathan Jones, I thought had an excellent game, and his work inside was fantastic for them, and certainly Viney lifted his work rate in the second corner as well. And it was disappointing, I think, that some of our blokes just looked to be spectating a little bit, and it took us a while and some pretty good defensive work to get back into the game because it could have gotten away from us.
Yeah, we were able to sort of grab it back a little bit towards the end there, which was good to see. But it was still, as you said, horrible.
Yeah.
And it could have been a lot worse.
In the end, they did enough. We had enough class and we maintained our structures well enough. But, God, you wouldn't want to dish that up too many times during the season and, potentially another percentage boosting win gone down the toilet because certainly at quarter time it looked like we could have gone on and won by 10 goals. And it's starting to become a bit of an issue that we haven't really shown an ability with a decent opponent that we have their measure that we can kick away. Melbourne always had a sniff,
Yeah. And that They are a lot more improved than what they have been in previous years. So, as a lot of people on the board had said, they were kind of worried about this game. It was a danger game. Melbourne are not easy beats. And that they have pushed some quite good sides, MCG.
Look, that's true.
This year. So
that's true, I think we contributed to our own downfall.
We did.
I don't think it was as close as it was because of anything that Melbourne forced us to do. I think we turned it over far too much. We lacked discipline at times, as I mentioned earlier. We lacked intensity at times during the game, and in the end, it was just our overall class, I think, that got us over the line, because we did lots of things to try and lose the game. That's for sure.
Oh, there's one player you didn't mention. I don't think Douglas.
I was just about to say,
I thought
Richard
he
Douglas.
actually. Yeah, I think he's actually had the past 2 weeks playing him up forward. He gives another dimension to that forward line, and that's helped bring him into the game a bit more.
Well, it's interesting. We were talking earlier about Mitchy McGovern playing up the ground a little bit at times.
Yeah.
I think also Dougie's playing a little bit of the role that we had Wayne Miller playing earlier on, and giving us a better return than Wayne was, as he should too, being a senior player. But his kicking for goals improved. His overhead marking is a feature of his game for a short bloke.
He's always been very good at that. He's a very good contested mark.
Yep. And just adds again to our flexibility up forward. The only thing that I would say about that is that it's indicative of Richie's current form line that they're choosing to play him there, because at his best, he is a damn good inside-outside midfielder. And we could really do with an in-form Richard Douglas running around in the middle of the ground. And the fact that we're playing him up forward either means that he's sadly out of touch, or he's lost a yard, or he's carrying something.
Well, he's still playing every so often in the midfield, but just not as many minutes as what he used to do. So it's more forward and then doing that little bit of relief in the midfield.
Yeah, but he's an ex-club champion.
When I've seen him in there, he's been okay.
Yeah. No, I think you're letting him off the hook, Nick. Something's not right.
I said okay. I said okay.
I just want him in the midfield. I want him in form and in the midfield. It's good that he's kicking goals up forward. Yeah, I think we all do. It's good that he's kicking goals up forward and providing another point of difference, absolutely. And he is playing his role up there right now. But I just wonder whether he's there by default.
No, he did say he'd had a meeting with Pike because his form has been down and he's not happy with how that's going. And so he said he had a good meeting with Pike, and that's when they've moved him up forward to help him work through some things, and Pike set him some particular goals that he has to adhere to.
Yep. Well, that's good. Well, hopefully Jakey Lever has a good meeting with Pikey this week, and whatever was going on in his head gets sorted out.
He was trying too hard. I think he was just trying too hard.
There was one
His
stage...
timing was slightly off.
There was one... I think it was in the last
quarter. Actually, not slightly.
He wasn't on the same planet. There was one stage where he gave away a free kick for blocking and then ran down.
I actually thought that was harsh on him.
Yeah, but then he ran down to try and make amends and then gave away another free kick for blocking. And they got to go, it's like, oh, Jake, you just can't take a trick.
So that's probably why he's the interceptor and not the blocker?
He's almost cock-wobbling numbnut of the week.
Well,
seriously, he's got to be a contender.
He got quite a stinger on the elbow in the first quarter. And watching that first little bit again, it was quite good at the very start of the game. And I just wonder whether there might have been a bit more than just a knock on the elbow.
You're always so forgiving, Nikki.
No, I'm just explaining that this is possibly why he's not at the standard of what we normally expect for Jake. I'm going to forgive him a little bit, only a teensy-weensy little bit, because he is a young player. As we've said with they're going to make some absolute stuff-ups, and he made some absolute stuff-ups. But I think you're right. I'm pretty damn sure he's going to get a nomination at least.
The only thing that I can imagine is that they shot him up with a painkiller and it somehow numbed his brain. Like, they stuck it in his head instead of his elbow by mistake and thought, oh, well, that'll do. And as a consequence, he lost the ability to speak and think and generally execute anything to do with football.
Well, put it this way, there was a particular player on our team today that the coach made the comment when I was standing on the sidelines at one stage going, I think she's seeing about 3 balls now, and obviously she's standing on an opponent that we can't see. Because she was playing in defence about 20 metres off of her player. But she was in that spot. It's like, yeah. But I was just watching Jake's game tonight and I was kind of thinking of her, going, but there was some similarities in the game here.
Just bloody cringed every time we went near the thing, poor bloke. Anyway, enough of that. I'm not dark at all because it cost me Game of Crows points. I really am, because that was a big call when I was prepared to make it. He just didn't live up to his end of the bargain. Anyway. So we get through...
Well, Cheney and Hardigan will be happy with him.
Well, that was the thing, you know. I mean, I'm sure he cares more about me than those two, but that's just adds more weight to the whole thing. I mean, they'd be giving him a hard time, surely, on the bus on the way back to the hotel.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. Here's another thing, because we know how we've talked about Hardigan, and we love how he gets in the face of the forwards when they make us stuff up, and he's definitely on the backwards. I loved actually seeing Brownie do it a couple of times.
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
That's normally... Yeah, you don't normally see him doing that, but there was a couple of things he did, the little point up to the head like, you didn't think that one through kind of thing. There was a little bit of mouth and off going back.
Oh, yeah, I do remember one time when he was... I think it might have been to Hogan. I can't remember. Anyway.
Yeah, I reckon it was Hogan.
The thing about Brownie, though, is they had to put Laddie onto Jeffy Garlett after half-time because Garlett gave Brownie, I'm pretty sure Brownie was on him in the first half, gave him a bit of a touch-up, to be honest. Not one of Luke's better games.
I was trying to figure out who was on. Hey, was Vince actually tagging anybody?
I don't think he was. In fact, Benny was a little bit down. He didn't seem to be that noticeable around the contest.
No.
So not one of Bernie's better games. You'd expect him to come a bit harder against us, but no. So whether he's carrying something or just had an off day, I'm not sure. But not the output you'd expect from him. So anyway, it's probably best that we just screw that one up, throw it in the bin, delete it off the PVR, and look forward to Carlton next week. Certainly on the back of their performance against Collingwood, you wouldn't expect that we'd have too much problems, but, stranger things and all that.
No, things have happened. Do we want to have a little quick chat about the SNFL?
Yep, I was just about to move on to that because it was a pretty solid performance by the boys after being down at half-time, weren't
They were horrible. They were horrible against Centrals, but by the sounds of it, because I was listening on the radio, didn't get to go out and see it, but it was really nice to see the 6 goals to Harry Deer, and that they were commenting quite well on there, even though it was so pro-North, it was hilarious. If you didn't want to get frustrated, you had to laugh at it. They were talking about his aggression, and they're like, oh, we don't normally see this, and I'm like, have you not watched Deer? Because that's one of the things I've quite liked about him, is that he's very aggressive at the ball. He's fair about it, but he's very aggressive at the ball.
Yeah.
I do wonder, though, with Loudon going off, that allowed him that little bit of freedom.
I was going to make the same comment, Nikki. I didn't see the game, but it was quite interesting to me that because they ended up apparently moving Ramsey back there, who would probably play more mobile, but with Loudon not there, it seems that Harry got a bit of space and didn't mind it. Score.
He did kick. He did kick a couple when Loudon was still on. So I know that he can work with there, but Ramsey only went back after half time, and second quarter we didn't have Loudon on.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's good to see Harry get amongst it.
Ramsey's a good forward as well.
Yeah, good to see Harry get amongst it because we've been waiting for it.
And by the sounds of it, Miller also had quite a good game.
Yep. I'll just go through the scores. We were down by 9 points at half time, but had a huge third quarter and carried it through to the last to win 11 goals, 12.78 to 9 goals, 9.63. And you're right, Miller picked up 24 posies and had quite a good game. 8 inside 50s.
50, yeah,
Wayne.
I was going to say it was 7 or 8.
Yep, fantastic. Ellis Yeoman again picked up a lazy 27 posies. 6 tackles in there as well for Cam, but I don't know, he's still not pulling games apart, is he? But he's consistently at the top of at the top of the disposal count. Is it Scott Spriggs? Sean Spriggs? Scott Spriggs?
Yes, Scott Spriggs.
Development player. Also had a really good game. 26 posies, 8 marks. 5 inside 50s. Mitchy Greek went all right again. Apparently it was Dean Gores.
Down back.
Oh, he played off half-back line, did he?
No, I was about to say down back. They said that Otten and Duday were just mopping everything up that were coming down there.
Yeah.
But I was very pleased to see that Heath Uni, who incidentally was at the game today, was sitting on the bench relaying messages.
Yeah, I noticed
but
that.
he singled out one of our top-up players because he went and put his body on the line to stop Mitch Harvey having a free run at the ball.
Yeah, no, that was Lee, wasn't it?
Yes. I really want to see the vision of it. I'm trying to remember what his first name is, but because it was his first game for us.
Yeah.
And that's just great to see. That the effort that our club is actually putting into these development players, even though we're not really getting any benefit so much out of them, but we're putting a lot of development into them as well.
Yeah, it's
and
interesting.
They're repaying the faith.
They're called development players. It's
a
bit hard to know what we're developing them for. But, to see a couple of them figure prominently is good, and it certainly takes the pressure off in terms of... we still want to have success in the twos. Even if it is there to, keep the blokes busy while they're cooling their heels waiting to get a call-up. It'd be interesting to see. Duty's really hitting his straps. It'll be interesting to see if he can get a run at some stage before the end of the season.
Lever better not put in any more of those kind of efforts because he might get replaced by Duday.
There you go. Well,
Tom makes some really good decisions.
Yeah, and it's we've only been talking about our defensive depth over the last couple of weeks, so it's quite timely that Andy Otten seems to be playing strongly, and also Tom is starting to hit his straps a little bit after a slowish start because of injury and whatnot. Also heard that it was Gore's best game probably since he's been back. 24 disposals, good. 7 marks, 2 rebound 50s. I heard, where's his clearance number? 7 clearances, so...
that's good.
And 5 inside 50s, so pretty solid game from Dean Gore, and it's good to see him figure a little bit more prominently because whilst he's still a young bloke, might have felt a bit of pressure being part of the Dangerfield trade. Who knows? But we need blokes like him coming through, so that's good as well. So a solid win by the SANFL Crows, and what does that leave us, about 3rd or 4th? Because Port beat Central somehow.
I haven't seen. Yeah, Port beat Central. No, we were 5th. I think it puts us into 4th.
Yeah.
But it pretty much has almost guaranteed us to play in our first final series.
Yeah, I think we're two games clear now in the top 4.
Yeah, it was North, who we had beat, to be 2 games clear of.
So, everything heading in the right direction for the SANFL Crows, and, we've got some talent and a little bit of depth there. It's always hard to judge, blokes like Miller and that playing in the twos. They can be scrappy games, and you got to go and get your own ball half the time, and things aren't as slick, particularly with the top-up players in there as well. It makes it a little bit difficult. So good to see them running around.
As Dan Squibb has just said, confirmed 4th, and we play Sturt next week, which is a tough thing.
A loss. It's just a loss.
Although I think that game's at Theberton, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
That's one of our home games.
Yes, one of 2. I think, or it's our second, one of the two. But Sturt will towel us up.
Yeah, they're quite a good side. And a lot of ex-Crows in there.
Yeah, playing very well at the moment.
So says the Sturt supporter. But in good news, not sure how many people followed the Squiggle. So this is a... so it was maxbarry.com/squiggle. And basically what it does is it's like Champion Data has, where your defense at premiership standard or attack at premiership standard, a lot of people have seen those kind of graphs. What it does, though, is it plots where the last premiers have come from, etc. But it tracks also the clubs through it. But it has a little predictor, and it's pretty damn good in terms of what it's doing. And at the moment, with our result today, it has us finishing second at the end of the year, which, as we work through the finals, it ends up with the grand final, according to it, being between us and Geelong, with a score of 77 to Geelong and 96 to Adelaide.
That'll be
now,
nice.
that would be nice. I prefer us to actually get over the 100 points. It does actually say, though, his little predictor isn't quite as accurate, but he's got another thing which is called flagpole, which is it lifts team up or down depending on who you've beaten. What it takes into account is whether you've won games away. He's got quite a bit of algorithm behind it and done a lot of work. It's actually pretty damn good. If you do want to do tips per week, it's sometimes actually got the scores spot on in terms of what the two teams are going to score as well, which is pretty damn good statistically. But the flagpole one has had us up above the other teams for quite a number of weeks, and they say that's actually the better predictor of who's actually going to be the premiership contender or the favourite. So the Squiggle loves us.
Yeah, look, those sort of statistical analysis are always really good, particularly when they're working in your favour or predicting positive outcomes for the Crows. But, as today showed, things can turn on a dime really quickly, and were we to drop today's game, we would have been back down with West Coast with an inferior percentage. So, it's a very tight jostle for spots, and I think having a double chance this year is going to be very important if we can hop into the
incredibly.
If we can hop into that top four and give ourselves a double chance and potentially a home final at some stage, that really sets us up. So we can't afford to be complacent like we were today. We need to start hammering a couple of teams, hopefully starting with Carlton next week. Any final words, Nikki, before we wind it up?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be keeping this game to watch.
No, I don't think so.
I'm not sure anybody really will, apart from the absolute diehards who have to have every single Crows game. But I don't think it's one that's ever going to get pulled out again to watch the highlights.
No, I don't think so. All right, well, we'll leave it there. Thanks, Nikki, for joining us tonight. Thanks, guys, for listening, and we'll see you on Tuesday night for Tuesday Night Live.
Bye!